Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're glad you could join us today. My name is Laura Jones, and I'm the Northwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the question moderator and host today for the Building Community Engagement and Awareness with Little Free Library webinar, presented by Greig Metzger, Executive Director of Little Free Library, and Joanna Sproull, Community Liaison with Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library. First, allow me to introduce our speakers a bit. Greig Metzger is the Executive Director of Little Free Library, a nonprofit organization that is a catalyst for building community, inspiring readers, and expanding book access for all through a global network of volunteer-led little libraries. As a senior executive, Greig has directed nonprofits as well as for-profit organizations in both consumer and B2B spaces. In his career, Greig has worked with Fortune 500 corporations, venture-backed startups, and organizational relaunches. A resident of Woodbury, Minnesota, Greig is a Princeton University graduate with an AB in economics, and he holds an MBA from New York University in finance. Welcome, Greig. Next, we have Joanna Sproull. Joanna is the community liaison at the Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library, where she works to align the library's goals with the community's needs by building strategic partnerships with local organizations and businesses. Joanna has a strong global awareness and understanding that what is done as a community directly affects the world as a whole, and believes that local and global decisions are interdependent, which is one of the many reasons she was drawn to the Little Free Library project. Joanna attended Marian University and graduated with a BA in English and minor in art history in 2007. Greig and Joanna, we're thrilled to have you here today. And just a couple of quick announcements before I turn it over. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. And for a full list of our current in-person training menu, you can see our continuing education website. This session is about an hour, and you will receive one LEU for this presentation. If you're watching an archived recording of the webinar, instructions on how to obtain your LEU are in the video's description on YouTube, or you can also find the instructions on our continuing education site under LEU policies. And those attending the webinar live will receive their LEU certificate in a follow-up email within the next couple days. So without any more ado, I will turn the presentation over to Greig and Joanna.
Super. Wow. That's pressure of all those credits and whatnot. I didn't realize all about that. Let me share the screen and bring up the presentation. So I hopefully everybody can see, right? Thumbs up. Yeah. Yes. No. Good. Super. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for sticking with us as we rescheduled. We've actually, have snow coming as well later on today, so I'm glad we have this in and done. I look forward to sharing some thoughts. I appreciate Joanna joining us today, because I think that she can give some really great perspective on the practical aspects of things as it relates to using Little Free Library in the community at a very local level. So what I want to do briefly, here's the agenda, what we'll walk through, take you through a little bit of a background about and history about Little Free Library. I've been here for a little over 2.5 years now, but there's a tremendous amount of history and background on Little Free Library. Talk about the key component of Little Free Library systems, if you will, and that's our volunteer stewards. Talk a little bit about who or what they are, their roles, and that kind of thing. Go through a few case studies, a couple of library systems that have used Little Free Library. And then I was going to not grill Joanna, but ask her a few questions that we shared a similar sort of question and answer process when we presented at the ABOS conference last year. Talk a little bit then about, so this is an intriguing thing, you want to do it, so what do you do, now what? And then the last thing at the end, I do want to share some of our programming that is around and uses the network of Little Free Library in particular, and some new things. Hopefully we do that in the hour time frame. I'll make sure we have enough time for questions, because I think questions are frankly the most valuable aspect of these kinds of things. So a little bit of background about Little Free Library. Little Free Library was founded in 2009 by Todd Bowl in Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm actually speaking from Hudson, Wisconsin right now, which is, for you, just east of the St. Croix River. Hudson is really a bit of a suburb, if you will, a little bit of a far away one, but a suburb of the Twin Cities. In 2012, Little Free Library became a nonprofit. Over time, we have been recognized by a number of literacy organizations, including the Library of Congress, the National Book Foundation. In 2020, we were recognized by the World Literacy Council, and so have been successful in our growth and in expansion of frankly, and we're proud of it being acknowledged by some leaders in the literacy space. We are in all 50 states in the United States. As you can see on the map here, every country that is in color or that is not in gray has a Little Free Library in its location. I think that actually, and I won't ask you to count them all, I think there are 113 on that map that we have a Little Free Library in a country. And we are also on every continent in the globe. You can see Antarctica there at the bottom of the page. We actually have a Little Free Library in the scientist station there at the South Pole, which is kind of cool, as a matter of fact. And as I mentioned, we continue to grow and expand. Last summer, we hit a milestone of 125,000 Little Free Libraries. This particular location is at the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. And in this location and the organization and in the community there was a recipient of our Impact Library program. They were one of the recipients. We'll talk a little bit about that at the very end of the presentation. I think our count is somewhere around 138, 139,000 Little Free Libraries across the globe. It looks like we will probably hit 150,000 sometime this summer. So we're really excited about the growth that has transpired over the last, what I would do the math, 13 years. So, stepping back a little bit, big picture, right, about Little Free Library, and what we're all about and what we strive for. And our vision as an organization is that there would be a Little Free Library in every community and a book for every reader in a community. And the reason we feel this is important especially about the book for every reader, is that we believe, people are empowered when they have the opportunity to discover a book that's relevant to them. And that's a key point. It needs to be relevant to them. And the opportunity to read is not limited by time or space or privilege. And this vision is recently reaffirmed through the board and whatnot, and has evolved over time. I think, at early on stages, there was a lot of a greater emphasis around Little Free Libraries creativity aspect of things in terms of building a Little Free Library. And while that's still important, and we'll talk a little bit about why and how to get community engaged, and that creative aspect is really important. But for us, we have realigned and reoriented in particular our mission, right? And our mission is to be a catalyst for building community, inspiring readers, and expanding book access for all, through a global network of volunteers. And those volunteers are what we call stewards. And they are the driving force to our growth, our expansion, and frankly, our success as an organization. So let's talk a little bit about, what is a steward and how one necessarily volunteers with Little Free Library. So a steward's pretty straightforward. They are a volunteer, right? So they're the entire network of 138,000 little free libraries around the globe, right? There's not some huge organization in Hudson that orchestrates all of this. We have a staff of a dozen people here in the office that do a variety of different things. So the key aspect of support is through volunteers. And that volunteer can be either an individual or it can be an organization. Now, this has been one of our key areas of growth, have been more organizations getting involved and supporting localized networks of little free libraries that are part of the larger global network of little free libraries. The important aspect of the steward provides that sort of physical connection from a human being perspective of that little free library in the field with the global network and with us here, in the office. The way that goes about doing that, and you will see those, that is an official charter sign. It's a unique number for each little free library. The charter signs started out as wooden signs way back at the very beginning. We've discovered that those don't last very long in the elements, so they are now all made out of aluminum, a little bit smaller. But each little free library that's registered you use the charter sign to do that. The charter signs come from us. It's a small fee. It's $39.95, and that gives you the not only the ability to be registered and visible on our map. Breaking news, it also allows you to be visible not only on our map on our website, but we are launching a new mobile application in 2 weeks. So it allows you to be visible and use that mobile app as well. But it also, but you don't need to buy libraries from us or whatnot. In fact, more than half of the libraries in the network are created by individuals. They build their own, sometimes quite elaborate little free libraries, sometimes very unusual ones. We have a number of libraries that are made out of recycled appliances, like their washers and microwaves that are used, or old furniture as examples of things. So great examples of creativity. So the steward, again, a volunteer, connects to the global network, but then the other aspect is the steward really needs to help engage with the neighborhood, with the community. I share in our presentations that the field of dreams approach with a little free library doesn't really work, right? You just can't put a little free library in a space and just expect it to magically be used by the community. It takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of communication, outreach in terms of in the neighborhood to tell people about it. Our stewards do a variety of different ways. Old-fashioned ways, like making a little hand flyer and handing them out and putting them indoors and distributing them through the neighborhoods. Now, with the presence of social media, many of our stewards, their little free library has their own little free library Facebook page or Instagram page or both. And so the key thing, though, is to be successful is to let people know that you're there, right? A secret doesn't work, right, in terms of engaging the neighborhood. Book sourcing is another responsibility of the volunteer steward. It is interesting. There's a variety of ways that books become part of that network and become distributed through a little free library. In many instances, once things get up and going, the neighborhoods will recognize and want to share their books through your little free library. So it becomes a little bit more self-sustaining. That said, there are communities where that is a little bit more of a challenge. And so we encourage stewards to reach out to neighbors to recruit and donations of books, gently used books. And we also share that many library organizations, if they don't have little free libraries of their own, are in many instances in a place where they would like to, through their culling of books, provide those to little free libraries. And then as a member of our organization and our network, there are a number of other organizations, other nonprofits, other businesses where you can tap into free or low-cost book supplies as well. So book sourcing and book maintenance and book management is an important thing. Again, not only getting books, but making sure that the library itself is attractive. When one goes and opens up the door, it is organized in the sense of you can see the books as opposed to stacks and piles and difficult to necessarily do things. There is a little bit of maintenance involved. Again, going back, depends a little bit on the kind of little free library you have. As I said, many people build their own, and they use wood and whatnot, so that needs to be maintained as it relates to the elements. We actually do market and sell libraries that are made out of recycled plastic. So the maintenance is considerably less on those. So that aspect of things, I can't tell you how one maintains a little free library that's made out of a microwave. I'm not exactly sure if that I can't help you there. But anyway, so the idea, right, is you do need to necessarily take maintenance on things. And what we've discovered, in terms of stewardship, stewards come in all ages, right? We have retirees, we have, brownies taking care of little free libraries. We have families taking care of little free libraries. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the ways library systems use little free libraries to engage volunteers in the community. And in many instances, families adopt a little free library. And the whole idea a little bit with that family adoption is reading can become a family opportunity and a family activity. So who is participating as stewards? Well, again, it kind of runs the gamut. As I mentioned at the very beginning, right? Our origin story is all about individuals, Todd's neighbors and networks, private citizens building a little free library and putting them on their front yards, in the front lawns, and sharing. And so, and still today, private citizens are the #1 sort of size or source of folks that put up little free libraries. But as I mentioned, we see more and more organizations pursuing and using little free library, not only to share books, but in that sharing of books, it's a tactic that helps them address some other larger, bigger organizational goals and or issues. And so these are some of the organizations that are necessarily doing that. So school systems and school foundations. This became especially larger and accelerated in 2020 with the pandemic and the shutdown of schools and the remote schooling in families' homes. As an example, we did some work with the Tampa school systems and their foundation, and they realized, right? I mean, everyone knows and has heard of, I think, the summer slide, right? Where children or kids kind of revert back in skill sets because they don't get access to books, necessarily through the summer. Well, lo and behold, right? This is happening during the school year because kids don't have access to libraries and remote education and whatnot. So the city, the foundation school system of Tampa Bay decided that they were going to put a little free library in each one of their elementary schools and use that as a mechanism to distribute books through to their children and promote the ability and access of that the box at each individual school. So elementary schools were able to distribute books and engage their students, or at least provide that resource to parents. So we see that more and more often with school systems and foundations. Public safety organizations. We have done work with a number of police departments across the country that are looking for ways of engaging community in a positive fashion, right? As police officers and leaders in the police and public safety organizations recognize a desire and a goal to have a more positive interaction, or at least create more opportunities for positive interactions as opposed to always having negative interactions. They look at it as Little Free Library as a solution to engage community members, bring them to the departments, bring them to their stations in a way that is in a positive opportunity, right? To come and look and see and find and share a book or look for a book to necessarily read as part of your family and getting together and the like. So that's another example. Parks and recreation organizations have also used Little Free Library. We have just finished up working with the city of Skokie, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. And they have used Little Free Library. One of their goals was to get their community members to do two things. The first was to visit their parks more frequently and usage, right? Give them more reasons to go and visit the parks. And the second thing was to engage the community in volunteer tasks, right? To become active members in the community. They used the Little Free Library as a solution to that. They custom designed a Little Free Library that matched what their design goals were for their parks. But each one of them is registered. Each one is in a park. And what they've done is not only promoted the availability of that, but then they've promoted the volunteer opportunity with families that are in Skokie to be a steward. And it's not a lifetime commitment. They do a straightforward process, right? It's an annual commitment, and then you can obviously renew, but they have a waiting list now for people to become stewards for Little Libraries. And so each one of their 13 parks now has a Little Free Library in it and a volunteer. And it's been a successful program, not only engaging community members to volunteer and support the city, but also created and get more incentive for people to take access and participate and use the city parks in the city of Skokie, Illinois. Chambers of commerce and community development organizations. There are places in urban places where chambers of commerce are looking to bring back or revitalize certain commercial areas, trying to create more walkable spaces. One of the goals of the use of the Little Free Library is give that reason for walking in that space is to go and visit locations in redeveloped areas. So we've done a work, especially in some older cities, in revitalizing shopping areas and small urban areas where businesses are being revitalized. In those instances, what the organization has done design contests. So this is that creativity aspect of things that I mentioned at the beginning, is they'll engage local artisans and artists to design the artwork, and that ends up getting configured on the Little Free Library, and then again is placed. And they have events around the libraries, and again bringing people to downtown areas and the like. Other fraternal organizations, the Lions Club, Kiwanis, Rotary, and the like, all use Little Free Libraries to create projects to support their communities. And lastly, we have public library systems. I'm going to shift into in a minute to two examples in case studies of how public library systems have used this. And I just want to share a little bit. At times historically, there have been some concerns about, quote, competing for resources, and we fundamentally believe that the Little Free Library can help the public library systems, and by no means do we wish to ever be in competition with any sort of resources. And although I think that concern has dissipated over the last couple of years, I do know that at one point in time, there were some concerns about that. So I'm actually going to pause and maybe see if there are any questions before we shift into the couple of case studies. So Laura, I don't know if you want to, if there's anything there, otherwise we can keep rolling. I'm going to sip a little bit of coffee though.
Okay. Yep, I don't see any questions yet, but just a reminder, if anybody does have questions, feel free to type those in the chat box and I'll get those to Greig.
Oh, stunned silence. There we go. All right. Well, we'll have to see if we can't do a little bit better. So I have two cases I'd like to share with you. The first is from the Salina, Kansas Public Library System. This comes from our wonderful partner, Lori Berezovsky, there in Salina, Kansas. Now, this network is actually supported by the public library systems. Lori is an employee. She is the person responsible for outreach at the public library. She had seen Little Free Libraries out and about elsewhere, thought it was an interesting concept, But one of the challenges was, okay, how to go about getting these, right? In a scarce budget environment, how to go about finding and getting a little free libraries. And what she discovered was the community, the city, had a woodworking group that was interested in doing projects for the community. And so she reached out to them and discovered that they were excited, thrilled, very interested in supporting them. In the sense of, again, because a little free library, there are no rules, right, about what it can be or what it can look like, or how big or small it necessarily is. I guess there's some rule about how small it can be because you need to fit a book in, I suppose. But anyway, so Lori reached out to the woodworking group, and they jumped in a full bore. Here's an example, which I would say is not one of the more typical designs you might find in a little free library network. For sure, it's definitely flexible, in terms of its form aspect of things. But in this instance, Lori and the whole project is library directed, right? So and in that, right, they have it's part of their outreach to the community. It's part of the way they recruit volunteers. They do set up guidelines as it relates to what the steward necessarily needs to do. They also make it quite clear, right, that the steward is a representative of the library system in the community. And so that individual that is stewarding that little free library on their behalf recognizes and understands that role. And with those guidelines, they are reasonably flexible in terms of what the book selection is, in terms of deferring to that steward what books are there, though depending on the location, they do make recommendations around that. As I said, it's a year-long adoption for a steward. And this is, again, an example where they have a waiting list for people to steward little free libraries. And they actually, in terms of form factors, there are a couple of locations that aren't your library. They're actually rolling carts that are, one of which is at I think the local airport. And so they have a lot of flexibility necessarily doing that. I believe in Salina, there are 13 little free libraries that are there through the public library system there. Another example, and this is a little bit of a different one, a flip side, is the Ojai Valley Library and Friends Foundation. So this isn't supported directly by the library staff organization. This is supported by a volunteer group outside. So it's a little bit of a different model. In this instance, one of the board members of the Friends of the Foundation was an existing little free library steward. Chris Humphreys is her name. She found funding through the foundation to begin to start these. The foundation manages these on behalf of the library. So part of their Friends of the Library, they are the stewards for the library. Now, the advantage to using the Friends and the foundation is there are some existing connections to the community that may not necessarily be available to the library or be known to the library. So the benefit here is all of a sudden there are other organizations, other people through networking through the Friends of the Library Foundation into the library. So it expands the overall network of people that are necessarily connected. So there's an opportunity to leverage those pre-existing relationships. They actually also use the library systems on the flip side, uses these little free libraries to promote what's going on in their library system. And the great thing about here, and this is a great example that's acknowledged by the foundation and the library, right? I mean, there are limited hours to the library. And if we're candid with ourselves, libraries, especially for our immigrant communities and whatnot, can be a scary place, right? They're officialdom, right? There are forms, there's cards and whatnot. So one of the things that they've found in the Ojai Valley is that their users tend to come from the local immigrant populations, especially it's a farm community in the southern valleys of California. So it's a great opportunity to expand necessary to do that. And here, just some of the great photographs. I tell people I have one of the best jobs around, right? Because I get to be able to participate in these kinds of events with kids and with books, and it's a ton of fun. So I'm going to shift gears now, and I've been droning on forever. So we're going to get Joanna to share her insights a little bit. Joanna is responsible on the outreach side of the Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library. Here are some photographs of some of the libraries that they've used. They actually used, and Joanna can correct me if I'm wrong, but the local technical schools to help assemble and paint some of the little free libraries. And that's some of what you see here, some of those examples. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have some questions for her, and we'll just kind of share through some of her thoughts as it relates to her experience using Little Free Library in her community. And so again, I want to thank ahead of time Joanna for joining me in this conversation. And I think with that, we'll get going with some questions. Joanna, are you good?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first question. So why did your organization decide to use a Little Free Library?
Well, about 10 years ago, a coworker came back from a vacation and she cut out an article about the Little Free Library movement and thought it was really amazing. It was out west when she was on vacation, and she just thought it was such an amazing idea, and she just handed it off to me, and I read it, and I just got goosebumps and thought it sounded like such a great idea. The founder, Todd, just the way that he had such a vision for how these little free libraries could work within the community and build community, while also encouraging the love of reading. Just it fits right with what libraries do, and it just seemed like a natural fit. And so I talked to my director at the time, and she gave me the green light to go ahead and make it happen.
Super. Thank you. Yeah. Todd, it's unfortunate. I never had the opportunity to meet Todd. But the stories that people like yourself, and others share about just the infectious nature of him. I really do wish I had the opportunity to meet him. And I do know we kind of not joke a little bit, but, he was like Johnny Appleseed in a way, kind of going around in the Midwest in particular with little free libraries and giving them out. So having made the decision and whatnot, do you promote your little free library? And if so, how do you go about promoting it in the community?
We share our map on our website and our social media, so everyone in the community can see where all of our little free libraries are located. We do press releases as well, and anytime we do like scavenger hunts or update them, we do press releases and social media boosted posts so everyone knows what's going on. We don't do anything beyond that, but we also, part of the promotion, I would say, is that we have quite a few. So it's hard to be in our community and not see them. At least, every day or so, you're probably going to see one in your daily commute. So everyone is pretty aware that we have them here.
Yeah, we've discovered, you mentioned social media, and it is definitely an advantage without a doubt. I think presenting that and visually and providing a map, not only using our platforms, but many libraries create their own, and other libraries, just other organizations, at a very local level, because that it's definitely helpful for people to find things. So no, that makes a ton of sense. So you said you started about, discussions 10 years ago. So how'd you go about, if you had to fund and acquire your little free libraries? How did the library approach that?
So I started out with a Walmart grant for $1,000, got it pretty immediately, and went to the town council to explain the project idea to make sure that it was all right to install some little free libraries. And it was like the stars aligned, quite honestly, from that moment on. They approved it. I met with somebody from our local energy business, Duke Energy, and they thought it was a wonderful idea, and they gave us funds to build 6 more, as well as fill all of the little free libraries. So we were able to really hit the ground running with several little free libraries right away. And we were very lucky also from that first town council meeting, a young man who was just about ready to start his process of becoming an Eagle Scout heard me speak and was very excited, and he wanted to help. So we ended up getting 15 little free libraries in about a year and a half. So we had quite a few. And what helped with that for funding, while we did order some through the Little Free Library website, we were able to get the design off of the website so that we could buy the materials, so that our Eagle Scout project was able to be we were able to use our funds very wisely. And we had somebody who was able to help build them. So that really helped us on our path to getting our little free libraries going.
Yeah, that's great. I will you mentioned that if people are interested, if you go to our website, there's a tab that says Start a Little Free Library. And I think actually since your Eagle Scout started, we've actually got a lot better sets of plans now. I think some of them were pretty rudimentary to begin with. But I think what Joanna shares is just the opportunity is out there to get partners that are willing to support things. And some of it is just kind of raising your hand, right? And asking, for help necessarily. Not that it's surprising you find it, but there's a lot of people that are willing and are excited, about participating. We see a lot of Eagle Scout projects and a lot of, was it Gold Star for the Girl Scouts, I think is the other way we see a fair number too. So anyway, thank you, Joanna. That's great. So so you have 15 or so little free libraries. How did you go out choosing where you placed the little free libraries in your community?
We tried to spread out our little free libraries as much as possible across the entire community. So we started out with, our first one was over in a very public area on Main Street with our big town bridge behind it. It's just kind of a centralized location. So that was a really good place with a lot of foot traffic. So that's why we chose that as our first. And then we moved around to different areas like our parks and our trail systems. We have a fantastic trail system here in Plainfield. And worked with the town and our Department of Public Works to install on the trails or near the trails, and also in the parks around those areas that also have neighborhoods, so that we could utilize different locations throughout town that was more of a public space where anyone could feel comfortable coming at any point in time and accessing the little free libraries. We also worked with different areas of town that are a little further away from the library. We have US 40, the national road goes straight through our town. So there's a north and a south, and the library is on the south side. And that can be a hindrance to some people to getting to the library. So we made sure that we placed our little free libraries on the north side of 40 in areas that would definitely benefit from having access, that the people in that area maybe don't have the access getting across town.
Yeah, no, that's great. We have a partner in California, actually the San Diego County Library System is doing exactly that sort of mindset, Joanna, of of placing little free libraries that are far afield from where the sort of the large brick and mortar is, so people can tap into things. Yeah. So no, that's great. Thank you for that. What's the level of community engagement with your little free libraries? You know, do people, how involved are they beyond sort of using them to find a book?
I would say our engagement is high, and it's remained high since the very beginning. Just you kind of hit on it. It started out with me asking for people to participate and help fund the little free libraries, and you're absolutely right. A lot of places are looking to support things. They just need someone to ask. If they don't know, they don't know. So
Right.
that was a big part of getting this going, and the engagement from those organizations, from our town council. It's been very strong from the beginning, and moving forward, we've begun partnering with different organizations like our Rotary Club. They are a big part of our stewards that go out and fill and check on our little free libraries. We have a group called our awesome West Side Advocates, and they also do that. They're very engaged, and they go out and check on the little free libraries. And just our community is really very supportive. I consider our little free libraries community led very much, though we do support them with maintenance and upkeep and making sure that everything is running smoothly. But truly, our community takes a lot of pride and ownership and responsibility for our little free libraries. If anything is happening, I get an email or a phone call very quickly. So we're lucky that we have a very engaged community.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great to hear. And I think, you know, again, to reiterate the point, you never know until you ask. All right. And you'd be surprised, right? People are looking to help out. What is your strategy for book provision? Do you do anything special or different, or is it sort of self-sustaining? How do you approach that, Joanna?
It's self-sustaining to a point. It's definitely a good idea to have a strategy for book provision. We are very fortunate that we have wonderful Friends of the Library organization, and they are able to give us books whenever we're running low and we need to restock. We also are able to use our withdrawn materials that are still in good shape and extend their lives beyond the library. But we also, people are interested in donating money to the library, and they want to, you know, buy some books for little free libraries. That's another way that people can help support them.
Super. Thank you. That's great. So then as you kind of think about things and based on sort of your experience and whatnot, you know, if for the folks that are in today's session, you know, what one suggestion would you have for those that were considering a little free library, or one tip?
Have a maintenance schedule. That would be my number one, top one. You were talking about the wooden signs and how you switched over to metal, and all of our little free libraries are wood. We've learned a lot. There's been so much trial and error with little free libraries, and not in a bad way, just you learn so much. And if I could go back, I would have started a maintenance schedule to, you know, every spring, go out, check on them. Every fall, go out and check on them, you know, and have that ready to go. It took a while for me to realize that we needed to have a spreadsheet and track all of the issues that were happening, and basically figure out, you know, the plexiglass is not strong enough in all of them, so we need to upgrade those. And just it is a living, breathing thing, in my opinion. So you can't just set them out there and just say, off they go. There's still a lot of work that is behind the scenes. So having a maintenance schedule and someone or several someones or partners that are able to take care of those issues and make sure that all of your little free libraries are maintained and running smoothly, I think that's probably the biggest suggestion I would give anyone starting this.
Yeah, it's kind of like anything else. It's a little bit like one's home, right? If you kind of get behind on those kinds of things, all of a sudden it becomes a really, really huge project. And, you know, in a little bit also along those lines, sort of the appeal, if things look nice, I mean, it doesn't need to be spick and span, but nice and approachable, right? More people will necessarily approach things. So yeah, I do think that that's a great suggestion, Joanna, without a doubt. And as you mentioned, you know, I think that there are, again, in communities that there are resources or people that are willing to help out and participate and volunteer to support that, without a doubt. So Joanna, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and whatnot. And I know if people want to get in touch with Joanna after the fact or whatnot, she'd be more than willing to share any, you know, answer any other questions you might have. So with that, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit so we get enough time to talk or ask any questions. So just briefly to review sort of what are the benefits, right? What are the network benefits of a little free library system as it relates and connected to a library, you know, in general, a public library system. You know, as I mentioned, you know, service beyond the existing brick and mortar. Joanna and her library is able to place libraries in communities where, you know, let's face it, right, they're not going to build a new brick and mortar large library there. So it's the ability to deliver books and reading materials beyond the walls of the library. It's a platform for program communications. We've seen that used by a number of systems, just putting flyers in a little free library about talking about other events that happen at the larger public library. Provides an avenue for culled book distribution. We've seen this in many instances. It's an opportunity to build brand awareness and just general awareness about the library itself in the community. It's a physical sort of post, right? And stand and sign for a library system. You know, it is a low hurdle in terms of volunteer opportunities. You know, we mentioned sort of the maintenance tasks, but there are also other ways of getting, you know, people just to check in, right? And just instead of having a library person have to go and find it, you know, have a group of volunteers just like to look and check in on the library and see if it's okay. So there are a lot of volunteer opportunities to get people connected with the library system. And those volunteer opportunities and those connections can also provide community connections. We have a number of organizations that have deeper ties with other organizations in the community because those organizations help support their little free library network. So you're excited, at least you're pretending to maybe be excited about this. So what do you do and what do you want to think about? Like anything else, you know, placement is key. Joanna mentioned, you know, foot traffic. She talked about trails. She talked about where people crossing. So you can't hide these, right? It doesn't work. They need to be visible. They need to be aware, and they need to be places where people are walking and the like, right? You need to provide books that are attractive in the community. And by that, I would say, you know, if you have a library that's in say a park with playgrounds and whatnot, you maybe want to orient books more around children's or books that moms and dads can read with their children's. If it's more of a senior center or an older community, perhaps you want to have a focus on more adult books. If it's perhaps a more of a Hispanic community, think a little bit about books in translation or multilingual books, those kinds of things. So think a little bit about the books that you're going to place necessarily in a little free library. You need to promote it. You need to let know people that it's there. It doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be broad-based, but it does mean you need to let people know that it's available and like getting connections. We talked a little bit. Joanna had talked about having a map where things are, the libraries are in her community. You can use the little free library mapping system to be able to do that. And finally, we do recommend, you know, some sort of events to announce the presence of the little free library in a community. We do, you know, ribbon cuttings all the time. And, you know, it doesn't, again, need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be elaborate. A ribbon, maybe somebody reading a short story, invite people to participate in the community, you know, especially now with COVID and the world hopefully getting to a little bit of a better place. You know, we're in a place to necessarily do those kinds of things. So That's Little Free Library. I want to do a time check. I got almost 10 minutes. So I do want to do two overview and then allow for time. Laura, I think I'm okay, right, as it relates to time.
Yep, you're good.
So I mentioned earlier some programs, and so there are two things that I think it's important that we necessarily share that's sort of beyond supporting all the other great people and organizations that are posting Little Free Libraries out there. The first is a program that we launched in October of 2020 called Read in Color. And briefly, as I mentioned, Hudson, Wisconsin is not that far from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And in fact, the vast majority of, like, almost all of our staff live in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so with George Floyd's murder in May of 2020, we as an organization were compelled to do something to improve the world that we're in, right? Improve the world that we're navigating. And so working with partners in the community, we developed a program called Read in Color, which is all about engaging communities to read and share diverse books. And our belief is that with the reading and consumption, if you will, of diverse authors, diverse perspectives, and challenging our thoughts and our lived lives, there's an opportunity to develop a greater level of understanding in our communities, greater sense of empathy and justice. As I said, it's launched in 2020. We've expanded it nationally. We rolled it out to 10 cities in 2021. We're doing another half a dozen or 8 or so in 2022. And it's pretty straightforward. We challenge people to take a pledge to read in color, and that's all about reading diverse books and sharing that book once you're done with it. And you don't need to share that through a Little Free Library, although we welcome that. You know, you can read a diverse book and share it with your neighbor, share it with a work colleague, right? Share it with a friend, share it with a parent, share it with a cousin, a nephew, what have you. But the whole idea is to broaden awareness of diverse perspectives and voices. To support that, we actually have a reading list, and it's on our website. It includes Hispanic authors, Native authors, Asian authors, Jewish, Muslim authors, the LGBTQ community is represented, neurodiversity community. So there's a broad range of books that we recommend. It's not an exhaustive list, but it is one that is curated from both academics as well as other authors and the like as a recommendation. The program then also, we put new installations, new libraries in partnership with communities of color across the country. And then we also provide diverse book packages to existing stewards that are willing to, are interested in participating in that program. And so to that end, we have provided over 143 libraries, over 34,000 books and working with 57 community allies through this program. It's really been an exciting thing. The second program I want to mention is our Impact Library program. Actually, some public libraries have used the Impact Library program to start and seed, right, their first library. It's a grant program. It's application oriented. It's a rolling grant process. We give away basically a Little Free Library, a set of books and a post to qualified organizations. We ask for a 1-year commitment from that organization to keep the library up and running and maintained and supplied with books. We have distributed over 1,500 of those libraries over the last 4 years. And we look to, we're in the process of finalizing a strategic plan that puts together for us a goal of having over 2,500 Little Free Libraries in 2,500 book deserts across the country by 2025. You may be familiar with this, but our focus and orientation around the Impact Library program is to address book deserts. And this data here, this map you see, is from an organization called Unite for Literacy. I encourage you to go see and check it out. Here is the city of Indianapolis. In those red areas are where there are less than 10 books in average in a household in the community. And we all know that books are critically important for development of literacy, success in life. So we're excited about broadening that Impact Library program. So with that said, here's yet another one of our wonderful patrons. This is actually at a Read in Color event here in Minneapolis last year. Thank you for the opportunity. And I guess with that, I'm going to, with the time that we have remaining, field any questions that you might have. Joanna, I'd ask, if something comes directed, it might make sense for you as well to answer, but I am done at the moment. So back to you, Laura.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you, Joanna. This has been wonderful. If anybody has questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat. We did have a question a little earlier about construction guidelines for the libraries, and I did point that question to the website where there's a whole page about the guidelines. But did you want to speak to that any, Greg?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do recommend the website, the links. There's some videos. There are definitely some plans. A couple of things, just reminders, right? It sometimes is a surprise to people. In many communities, right, the local community, the town, the city, whatever, they control, right, the first 3 feet, 4 feet, or whatever from a street. So it's really important you understand the town guidelines and rules about digging holes in places. I also will remind people to call the utility companies as well to make sure that things are marked before you go digging, just to be safe in that aspect of things. But those would be my just sort of reminders. But yes, the website's got a tremendous number, not only of plans, but other tips and tricks about getting your library going. And that's littlefreelibrary.org. But if you just go Google and put Little Free Library, you'll get there. Any other questions?
I don't see any other ones right now. I will add, I have just become a steward and my library is not up yet, but it will as soon as the ground thaws. But as a steward, they also offer a lot of opportunities for you to get free books for your Little Free Library. There's contests and there's like always opportunities to sign up and get books to put in there. So that's a wonderful resource as well on the website.
Yeah, I just to elaborate a little bit on that. One of the things that we found in one of our goals in that is to try to be the connector. So there is a book resource page on our website that allows people to connect with people that are interested in donating books to people, as well as then people that are perhaps needing books to support things. So it's been something that I wouldn't say we necessarily stumbled on it. We built it a year ago, and it's become a very key tool in getting books. And then I will also say, or put it in a plug, for our mobile application. As I said, it's actually live now. So if you go to whatever your mobile phone platform of choice, Android or iOS, and you go to their respective app stores, you can download the Little Free Library mobile app, and you can set up, if you're a steward or whatnot, your own accounts. Anyway, where I'm headed here is there will be the opportunity to also indicate, if you need books or new books, and so it gives a way to publicly sharing some more information about your library to the community as a whole. So we're pretty excited about that as well.
Great. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions, but there's a lot of thank yous and everyone enjoyed the information, very informative. So again, thank you both so much. And if you're listening to an archive recording, you can find information on how to obtain your LEU certificate in the description on YouTube. And then live attendees, I will be sending an email with that. So thank you for tuning in today, and thank you guys both for presenting.
Thanks, Joanna, for your support and help.
And you
Take
can
care.
stop the recording, Lisa.